An instant relationship brews the moment we touch the ground. When we set out for our destination, we desire, we wish. When we dare the heights or take the roads less walked, when we turn travelers. Or when we don't move, when we embark on an exotic, motionless journey, when time is patted to a gentle sleep, a forever timelessness, when we turn meditators. Meditation, a 10-letter word that instantly summons silence and eternity, an inward voyage that flows effortless from our minds to a beyondness at once felt and yet immeasurable. Meditation has come a long way since its primordial moments from the deep recesses of a forest, where ancient sages practiced this ageless art as a way of life. From the teachings of Shankaracharya and Gautam Buddha to the research-savvy laboratories of scholarly institutions, it has taken a breathless journey, offering one blessing after another. But what happens when the mind is held hostage by stress and trauma? What happens when the mind shuts on us? When our very own minds drop our existence into oblivion? What happens when a disease called Alzheimer's threatens to take over our very identity? But first, what is Alzheimer's? How does it cripple our brains?
According to researchers, the process of Alzheimer's dementia involves two proteins called beta amyloid and tau, which somehow become toxic to the brain. It appears that abnormal tau accumulates, eventually forming tangles inside neurons. And beta amyloid clumps into plaques, which slowly build up between neurons. As the level of amyloid reaches a tipping point, there is a rapid spread of tau throughout the brain. But tau and beta amyloid may not be the only factors involved in Alzheimer's. Eventually, neurons lose their ability to communicate. As neurons die, the brain shrinks, beginning in the hippocampus, a part of the brain important to learning and memory. People may begin to experience memory loss, impaired decision-making, and language problems. As more neurons die throughout the brain, a person with Alzheimer's gradually loses the ability to think, remember, make decisions, and function independently.
I think we need to look at the brain as a normal functioning organ first, and it has tens of billions of neurons that are all communicating with each other. They're all interchanging nutrients and interchanging signals. At some point in Alzheimer's disease, that stops. And what happens is that the neurons become sick and they die. So what do we find in the brain of a person who has Alzheimer's? First of all, certain areas of the brain will be first affected. They are in the area of the hippocampus, and they affect a lot of memory, socialization. The personality of the individual will stop being who they are, and it really interferes with all their ability to socialize and their ability, at the end of course of the disease, and their ability to function normally and to be the human being they were before, unfortunately. So this is why the disease is so devastating.
The quintessential message of medicine has always been prevention. Prevention of a disease before it becomes an active suffering. When it comes to Alzheimer's, prevention becomes the essential key, specifically when we realize that we still do not have a proper understanding of the evolving pathologies of this disease, let alone having a firm therapeutic cure. This is exactly where meditation emerges as a very strong preventive measure with immeasurable benefits. Fortunately for us, we find ourselves at a very good crossroads where West finally meets up with the East. When science, with all its rapid advances, can now understand the depth and potential of these ancient holistic principles. In short, time has come for us to adopt meditation as a strong scientific tool to protect and preserve our brains.
Simple statistics will tell us that we are at the threshold of a pandemic. Worldwide, a staggering 50 million people have some forms of dementia, and someone in the world develops dementia every 3 seconds. Here is a disease that refuses to flaunt, but crumbles the soul from inside. Here is a disease that destroys relationships, breaks families, turns seemingly unshakable bondages into ruins.
As it's well known, people suffering from dementia has little memory of current information, but remember the distant past quite well, especially tragic events. That's why my mother never forgot the New Year's Eve of 1944. It was my second birthday, and I was dying of malnutrition in the cellars of the Jewish ghetto where the Hungarian Nazis forced us to move. This event had haunted my mother her entire life and came back to torture her while suffering dementia in her old age in New York. Taking care of her was excruciatingly difficult, emotionally hard work. For me, as her often exhausted caretaker, the only relief was to engage in spiritual work. During my frequent filmmaking trips to India, I've experienced how the Indian people relate to mortality in a deeply spiritual manner. No therapy could match India's spiritual impact on me during the difficult task of taking care of my mother's tragic descent into dementia.
Alzheimer's is not a solitary disease. The whole family suffers together, and the ones most at risk, the most vulnerable, are the caregivers, be it a spouse, a child, a sibling. Almost like an infectious disease, the pangs of wordless isolation traverse from the sufferer to the caregiver, till they are one in grief. In most instances, caregivers go unnoticed and unseen. Helping hands are meant to be strong and healthy, and if they are not, they need replacement. Unfortunately, the scientific world has little patience or interest in delving into the psyche of caregivers. And this is exactly here where meditation steps in. A caregiver for the caregiver. An encircling embrace when the world crumbles all around.
I'm standing in front of Lord Shiva in meditative pose. A pose that has been with us for hundreds and thousands of years. But the real point of entry of meditation has been after the invention of electroencephalogram sometime in the 1930s. That's when meditation took a transition from a cult to a serious proposition. Ever since EEG announced its powerful presence in the world of medicine, and we came to know of the quiet and the contemplative alpha waves, the excitatory beta waves and the phlegmatic theta waves, research after research poured on the brains of yogis and meditators. And the result that came out from that was absolutely magical. We came to know that the brain of those meditators and yogis, after a spell of meditation, exhibited a tremendous exotic harmony between all the waves, in complete contrast to the chaotic brain wave patterns we saw with the non-meditators. The verdict was completely clear that the brains of meditators and yogis entered into a profound state of tranquility.
Consciousness is there in every being. Consciousness is there in these rocks. Consciousness is there in the sea. Consciousness is there in the trees. And consciousness is there in the human beings. Only difference is that we can awaken our consciousness. And the process, the ancient process which we know how to awaken our consciousness is a process called meditation. India has gone so deep into research into the impact of meditation for centuries together that for two different individuals they will prescribe two different methods of meditation. One could be chanting of simple mantra, one could be focusing on one's chakra, one could be meditating beyond the body so that you lose your body consciousness. So the methodology that is used to submerge or merge yourself with the universal consciousness is meditation. And if meditation has that impact, as Buddha says, that our ultimate aim is to get nirvana, that is to, by Hindu ethos, we want to get free from this cycle of reincarnation, death, birth, and the only way to achieve this state is meditation. So if meditation as a tool can free you from the cycle of birth and death, it is beyond comprehension the kind of impact meditation can have on one's own health.
One of the issues that I've always been interested in is research showing that meditation can be very helpful for the emotional and physical well-being of people. Not only does it help you to remain stress-free, it gives you better emotional balance, good sleep, and also helps you deal with the very fast-paced world that we live in. I would suggest that it's a good practice to follow on a regular basis because the health benefits of doing meditation regularly are immense.
It has been more than gratifying to watch this breathless journey of meditation and yoga from Nalanda University to Harvard University. And for scientists and clinicians like us, we are enchanted by the tremendous amount of research that has poured in on meditation and yoga and incredible results that we have found from them, just to prove the powerful presence of meditation when it comes to addressing moments of stress, trauma, and eventually dementia.
Journalists ask me, what is your biggest fear? My biggest fear is Alzheimer's. I played a Alzheimer patient in a film which was about Maine Gandhi Ko Nahi Mara, which was about 15-20 years back, and by mistake I read books on it. I read books on Alzheimer's, and every symptom that I read, I thought I was the victim of that. I pray every morning. There are 3 hymns or mantras that I have been doing since childhood. And while I was working on this film, one day while praying I forgot one of them, which was unbelievable, and even till today it happens. Meditation helps in everything in life. The concept of meditation sometimes, especially in that part of the world that you come from, but you belong to this part of the world, there can be a misconception of what is meditation. That is very important, I think, because sometimes you get used to it, okay, 1 spoon of sugar, 1-2 spoons of coffee and little bit of dash of milk, but then that's coffee. But meditation can't be dash of breathing and dash of calm, then it's much more than that. Much more. Yeah.
Why just Alzheimer's? There are so many neurodegenerative disorders which may be helped through meditation, through yoga, and because he gives such a convincing evidence of the synaptic connections, the myelination, the changes that meditation can bring about in the neurological system, my scientific mind says that there's tremendous scope for research in this.
To break apart the phrase mindfulness meditation in an attempt to seek the meaning of the individual words is like breaking one's spinal cord, at once fluent and continuous. The ease with which mindfulness weds meditation is a reflection of the profundity of the phrase, a tribute to the limitless gamut of its presence.
When it comes to meditation, it can potentially be very effective at helping people with a variety of psychiatric and neurological conditions, including trauma and dementia, because it's basically like exercising your brain. When you exercise a muscle, it becomes physically bigger and typically a lot stronger. You can do a lot more with it. And what the research shows is that when you do a practice like meditation, it's like doing exercise for your brain, and your brain literally becomes bigger and it actually can become stronger. It can work better, more effectively, and help you with your emotional processes as well as your cognitive processes. When it comes to spirituality and medicine, I think it's very important to consider how important spirituality is in so many people's lives throughout the world. Many people follow different religious and spiritual traditions, and it becomes an important part of their overall sense of health and well-being. So as a healthcare provider, it is essential to understand a person's spirituality and how that spirituality may be something that could be useful for them when they're dealing with various health-related issues or turning to various practices like meditation or prayer to help them be able to cope with life stressors as well as health stressors to keep them as happy and healthy for as long as possible.
In contrast to mindfulness meditation, transcendental meditation entails the repetition of a mantra, sounds or simple sentences that help the meditating mind stay focused. The idea is that the wandering mind will find its way to happiness, drawn by the increasing charm of its own blissful depths. With further practice, a permeating follows, allowing entrance into a space that is uncircumscribed and limitless, free from the shackles of thoughts, images, or sensory objects. For decades, the easy-to-learn repetition of a few words during meditation has captivated countless followers around the globe, the most famous being the Beatles.
Peace on earth.
As John Lennon said, "With meditation, I find energy pouring down like rain, and it is still the same amount." About 55 miles southeast of Patna, the present capital city of the state of Bihar in India, lies Rajgir, a town nestled by silent mountains and undulating greens. This is where Nalanda University was born in the 5th century BC, one of the earliest scholarly homes of human civilization. At Nalanda University, the gathering of wisdom was a guiding force, embracing both the mind and the spirit. It attracted and provoked the finest of minds: philosophy, music, spirituality, mathematics, astronomy, logic, a limitless repertoire of knowledge assembled in this abode of wisdom. In a majestic display of architectural brilliance, lofty red brick walls helmed a sprawling campus where divine scholars lived, studied, and preached. Among them was Lord Buddha. Yet how did Eastern spirituality make its way to the West? Most fittingly, the honors fell on a cyclonic Hindu monk, Swami Vivekananda. Not just a monk, but as one of the greatest scientific minds, this exquisitely gifted soul had the entire intellectual and spiritual Western Hemisphere under his belt. Not surprisingly, Harvard University offered him the chairmanship of Eastern philosophy, an offer that Swamiji happily declined. But what followed after that was no less than a fairy tale. Like from a crack in the dam, Eastern thought and Oriental philosophy flooded the Western soil. Research after research poured in from Harvard, Cornell, Oxford, Cambridge. The list is exhaustive and still growing.
When it comes to the study of spiritual practices and the brain, in the field of neurotheology, which I work in, we have discovered that there isn't just one part of our brain that becomes active when we engage our religious and spiritual side. It turns out that we use many different parts of our brain, and this should come as no surprise. After all, most people who have spiritual beliefs or do spiritual practices will affect a variety of different aspects of who they are. Sometimes it changes their emotions, sometimes it's cognitive processes, sensory processes, and even behaviors. Some of the most important areas of our brain that appear to become involved in these practices include areas such as the frontal lobe, which is right behind your forehead. This is active when we focus our attention, so when you concentrate on a meditation or prayer practice, those frontal lobes become more active. And of course, when you are engaged in a feeling of letting go or surrendering yourself to a spiritual belief or a spiritual practice, the frontal lobe activity actually decreases. Another important area of our brain involved in spiritual practices is the parietal lobe, which is located in the back of the brain. And this is an area that normally takes our sensory information and helps us to put together our sense of self and how our self relates to the rest of the world. Well, during spiritual practices, people lose that sense of self and they feel a sense of oneness and connectedness, and this is associated with decreases of activity in the parietal lobe. So as we observe the multiple changes that go on in different parts of the brain associated with spiritual practices, we are learning that it's not just one part, but it is the entire brain that is our spiritual part. And of course, if our brain is intimately connected with our body, then it is our whole person that is the spiritual part of ourselves.
It has long been believed that as our earliest language, spiritual music held the power to travel deep into our brain, deeper than what any prescribed medicine can. In fact, the concept of using music and arts as sources of healing have been timeless. Music therapy had flowed from the ancient civilizations of India, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece. In today's world, even Mozart's sonata has been proclaimed as having therapeutic powers.
So please take a moment to use music in your life, to use music to fill our lives with joy and pleasure, and to try and listen to Mozart. Mozart has been proven that it will help your mind expand.
Over my 40 years of experience, it's well known, and I've seen many times how stress has actually caused what we can call a cardiomyopathy. There's something called Takabutsu cardiomyopathy, and it's really, another name for it is stress cardiomyopathy or heartbreak cardiomyopathy or heartbreak syndrome. And it really does cause changes in the heart. We've documented that over the years with echocardiography. And when the heart is affected, it affects multi-organs. It affects the kidneys and the brain and your sense of well-being.
As a risk factor and a point of entry for 1 million diseases, stress is virtually the epicenter of an ever-brewing storm. It can be relentless, ruthless, and unstoppable. A serpent in the grass that can target any major organ at the slightest pretext, be it the heart, the kidneys, the brain, and as we know now, even our minds.
It's been my experience that spirituality or any modality that can lessen stress greatly affects the risk of heart disease. And what I mean by spirituality is prayer, meditation, yoga, or anything that brings down the anxiety and the levels of epinephrine in the blood can greatly reduce the risk of heart disease and actually reduce the broken heart syndrome or stress cardiomyopathy. So as a cardiologist, I strongly advocate techniques that can lessen stress, lessen tension, lessen the release of epinephrine, and this I've seen over the years, very much so comes with spirituality.
The triumph of meditation and yoga have been precisely their immeasurable power to prevent stress from taking over our system. The writing is clear on the walls. The more we meditate, the more we prevail.
It does help. Meditation and spirituality, as you said, is looking inwards. That means when you look inwards, you delay your response. When you look inwards, you detach yourself for some time. And detachment itself makes you feel that you can see it from an outsider. As an actor, my acting teacher used to say that a person who is also Anupam Kher has to observe Anupam Kher, what he or she, what he is doing. People say, shut your eyes and breathe. When I shut my eyes and breathe, then the mind starts working. But the trick is to do it a little more than what you think you need to do it for. Then, especially when I do yoga, my yoga teacher puts me into a position and suddenly she said, now you are breathing normally. So I tell her, but I was breathing now. She said, no, now you are breathing calmly. You are breathing in any case to be alive, but breathing calmly makes you calm. So when you at your own place, a 16-year-old boy is told by his father that don't worry, failure is an event and never a person, and the grandfather says to you that the cheapest luxury available when you're very poor is happiness, that itself is spirituality.
To me, being cool is being punctual.
To me, being cool is being honest. To me, being cool is being a good person. To me, being cool is not to hurt. When you practice all this, you're already a spiritual person.
I had developed hypertension when I was submerged with a lot of work and the stress of handling very important issues in administration while doing clinical work. I did a course of 3 months for yoga for health, and thereafter it has been a win-win situation. The blood pressure came in control, the tachycardia was sorted out, and I could go off medications. I think that is the beauty of a lifestyle change associated with an Indian system of yoga, where we believe that meditation, breathing, exercises and mindfulness helps control blood pressure, our sympathetic drive, and we are in control of the situation.
The discovery of microtubular damage, one of the pivotal structures in the cytoskeletal system, opened up a completely new dimension, or if I may say frontier, when it comes to research on holistic medicine. And I'm saying this because this very word microtubule became the center of attraction to most physicists. To them, this microtubule contained what we call as quantum vibrations, which they propose is the seed of human consciousness. More importantly, they think that the origin of these brain waves actually comes from these quantum vibrations. This invention has taken the world by storm. And this marriage between medicine and physics is probably one of the best things that has happened in the world of meditation. Scientists actually propose that many cognitive disorders, including dementia, can actually be treated from the understanding of these quantum vibrations. Meditation thus becomes a pivotal function to quantify and to measure these quantum vibrations. Inevitably, a question comes out. Can we not use meditation to modify these quantum vibrations and maintain the functional integrity of microtubules, the prime target of Alzheimer's? In short, can we not prescribe meditation to prevent Alzheimer's?
When it comes to healing, we need to start all over again as students of truth, with that belief that permanence of any solution lies in the prevention of that very problem. Meditation, yoga, and spirituality offer the promise of such permanence in their art of practice, an art that brews well before organs mature and linger long after they wither, and in the process become priceless accompaniments in our striving for a blissful life.